Good morning, all. Brendan O'Driscoll is my name. I'm the Carrigaline GA Club Youth Development Officer. Welcome to all the coaches from the GA Club, the Ladies Football, and the Camogie Club this morning for our coaching webinar. It's primarily based around the ages of under 5 up to under 10 for the boys, under 5 and up to under 12 for the girls. Okay, so that's the kind of the street leagues or the Carrigogue sections of the Ladies Football, the Camogie, and the boys section. Okay. So before we start, guys, okay, we'll just have a little icebreaker, a little brain, get our brains going this morning, first thing in the morning, guys, okay? I know some of them were on yesterday would have done this, so you'll know the answers. So what you'll see is an emoji of different sports. So with your pen and paper, just try and see if you can answer them and write them down. Okay, I'll give you about 30 seconds to answer them. Some might find it easy, some might find it more difficult. I'll give you about 30 seconds there and we'll move on. Okay, so our first answer for number 1 is basketball. Number 2 is volleyball. Number 3 is handball. And number 4 is table tennis. Okay, so here comes the second lot. I'll give you again 30 seconds just to fill in the answers. Again, just to try and get the brains going, get the brains working on a Sunday morning, guys. Okay, so first answer, cricket. Second, archery. Third is boxing. And the final one then is rugby, okay? So again, as I said, just to kind of wake us up and get the brains going. Okay, again, for the webinar this morning, guys, it's primarily based on the coach of a young child from the ages of under 5 up to maybe under 10 to under 12, as I said earlier about the different sections in the club. Okay, so this is the definition of a coach. A coach is a person who assists and challenges players to achieve their full potential. Okay, so again, you can see the highlighted words, the assists and challenges. Your job is to facilitate. Your job is to guide, assist, and help, and also to challenge them to become better than they actually are at that particular moment, okay? Your job is not down there to take all the glory, is not to win counties or championships. Your job is to assist and to challenge the players to achieve their full potential, not only as a player, but as a person, okay? It's very important that when we're dealing with kids of a young age, that we're dealing with the child in front of us rather than trying to coach them the sport or coach them as a player, that we're actually dealing with that child in front of them, because at a young age, kids have different needs or different abilities and they have different levels. So we all have to treat them a bit differently and we have to treat that person that's in front of us. Okay, so that's your role as a coach, guys. Assist and challenge the players or the people or the person in front of you to achieve their full potential. So throughout the years as a coach, guys, this is what you'll end up doing, okay, especially with the smaller ages. You're to create a fun, safe environment where learning and development can take place. You're to develop the basic skills of hurling and football. We'll talk about the skills and how we can coach them and what we can do in the sessions later on when we delve into our resources. To develop the basic fundamental movement skills, again, a very important section. And some people don't realize that we actually have to do this the way modern kids are and the way society and things have gone, especially over the last 12 months with COVID. Okay, kids are a lot less active than they used to be years ago. So we have to actually develop these movement skills in order for them to become more efficient at the hurling and football skills or the camogie skills. To ensure that all players have fun, our sessions are primarily based around fun at the younger ages, that it's a fun-based session, that it's all fun, and you're building your hurling and football, your movement skills into that fun session. And as I said earlier, to coach the person and not just the sport. Very, very important when you're dealing with kids of different ages and different ability levels and different skill sets and social skills and physical skills and athletic skills, that we coach that person that's in front of us. Okay, it's very important. Okay, and the role of coach is more than just coaching. Okay, and you'll see in the next slide what I mean about that. Okay, the role of the coach will be many and varied, from instructor, assessor, friend, mentor, facilitator, demonstrator, advisor, supporter, fact finder, motivator, counselor, organizer, planner, goal setter. So this is what this is what the role of a coach is defined. There's a lot of stuff that you need to actually be. You need to put on different hats at different times. You need to be their coach. You need to be their mentor. You need to be a kind of a counselor sometimes. You need to be almost like a second parent to them when they're coaching, because some of them will have different needs, as I said before, and different ability levels and different wants that you as a coach will have to kind of subsidize as a parent when the parents aren't around. Okay, so for a coaching philosophy, guys, okay, this would be the coaching philosophy I would kind of try and tell, or trying to maybe encourage our coaches to go by or to work off. Okay, so that we maximize our participation within the club, within the teams that we have, that we accept all races, all religions, all learning difficulties, all ability levels, all walks of life, whether they're Irish, they're non-Irish, they come from the traditional J family or they don't, that everybody is part of the group, then that we try and maximize the people that are there, we maximize their participation levels, and we try and get everybody involved all of the time. That all players to be treated equal. Again, as I said, you know, that we accept all backgrounds and all families and religions and nationalities, because at the end of the day, guys, we have to, as I said before, we have to treat them as a person. We have to treat them as a human being first, and then we try and coach them that sport over time. And you know, when they come into the club, that we're open and we're very friendly that way, that we can see to be doing all this stuff. Okay, that we involve everybody in the sessions and the matches, we rotate the players in the different groups. And a lot of the time people's reason for packing up or for quitting is there's a twofold. There's one, it's not fun, and two, they're not getting enough game time. Okay, as you get older, as the teams start playing matches and games, that the biggest gripe the parents have or the kids have is they don't get enough game time. So when we're doing our sessions, that if they're playing matches or any kind of a fun game, that they're all included and they're all part of the group. Okay, we said at the start that players need to be challenged. Okay, we need to treat children as an individual in front of us. They need to be they need to be challenged on their merits in front of you. Each player has a different ability level. Each player has different needs that they want to be met. Okay, so they need to be challenged in different ways. You have your stronger athletic players, you will have players who are technically good, you'll have some players who are good decision makers. So they all need to be challenged in their own way, and to work on their weaknesses to help them improve, then to become a better person and a better player. To challenge each player, and not to kind of put everybody in the same bracket or in the same basket, like that they're all the same, that each player has to be treated individually and on their merits. Okay, our communication, when we're communicating with kids, with children, okay, it has to be positive, it has to be encouraging. Our verbal and our non-verbal have to match up. So if our hands are explaining something, or the words we choose to use have to match our actions in terms of how we're showing them a skill or how we're showing them a movement. Okay, and then we communicate with everybody. Okay, we're not just concentrating on the stronger players, or we're not working on the stronger players, that we're concentrating on everybody, that we communicate effectively. And your feedback then towards the players is important. Even at a young age, at 5 and 6s, your feedback is very important. You say, look, if you hold the hurley this way, or if you kick the ball this way, it might help you improve, rather than saying, shouting instructions, or using adult words to them. You know, bring your communication down to their level, get down to their level, get down in the eye level, so that they can see you and they can hear you properly, that your verbal, your non-verbal match up, your body language is positive, it's happy. By doing this then, guys, you're building a relationship with the player, you're building a relationship with that person, that they trust you, that if you're being honest and if you're being specific and you're giving them correct feedback, then the parents will see that, the players will see that, and from my experience over the years, guys, the kids, especially young kids, will find you out very fast if you're only bluffing them. Okay, if you know your stuff, they know that you know your stuff. But if you're pretending that you know it, and you don't, the kids will know that too as well. They're very, very good at reading people like that. When you're speaking to kids, or when you're giving them instructions, keep it to 2 or 3 key points. Okay, don't be speaking to 5-year-olds or 6-year-olds for 2 or 3 minutes. After about 20 seconds, the kids are gone. They're looking at the airplanes, they're looking at the weeds on the ground, they're looking at mommy and daddy. Keep it to 2 or 3 key points. You know, laces for kicking the ball, toe out when you're soling the ball, all these kind of little cues, you know, your W when you're catching the football, that they remember. It's easy for them to remember, and they can actually, when you say, or laces when you're kicking it, they remember that then, okay? The last thing on communication then, guys, don't be afraid to ask the players, even at a young age, questions. Ask them, are they enjoying it? Ask them, you know, what would you have done better? How would you improve that? Or how could you have done something better to make you improve on the skill that you're doing? Ask them the questions, because I can guarantee you they know the answers, but they just want to be asked. And it's important from a young age that the coaches don't just tell them the answer, because you're setting them up then later on in life that they won't be able to think for themselves. And from a young age, we need to make decision-making process a very important part of their coaching at 5, 6, and get them to make decisions early, get them to think for themselves and give you the answers. They have the answers if you just ask them, okay? The we before me mindset, guys, okay? We do a lot of this, and I have tried to instill this in a lot of the younger teams and the younger coaches, or the coaches of the younger teams, that it's the team first, okay? The team over individuals, that we are Carrigaline, we are a group, we accept everybody, and everything is about the team. Build it into your sessions. You can modify rules of games to allow it more team play, rather than just the stronger players dominating. That in order for the team to be able to score, you have to pass the ball twice. You have to pass it to somebody who hasn't touched the ball, and something like you can, for other players to get involved then or be part of the team, then the person who scores goes back into goal if you're playing matches. So it's not the same player scoring the whole time. Everybody has an opportunity to be part of the team and to score. And as I say to a lot of, especially the older kids, like, the name on the front of the jersey is more important than the name on the back of the jersey. So we try and get that team mindset, that we before me mindset, into the players from a young age. Our job as coaches, guys, is trying to retain players for as long as possible. And by doing that, then by creating your sessions as fun and as safe environments, and creating a good culture and a good environment, then your player retention will be good as well, because they're enjoying their sessions. If they're coming down week after week, that's giving you immediate feedback then on your session. If they don't show up after a couple of weeks, and then you know you have to look at something, maybe you're not doing something in the session that's fun, or that they don't enjoy it. But then I go back to my point about communication and asking questions. Ask them, did they enjoy that game? Ask for a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Was that too hard? Was it too difficult? Was it challenging? Was it too easy? All these kind of questions, guys, and you will get their feedback then, and that will help then in terms of keeping that connection, keeping that player retention high then, guys, okay? As I said at the start, like, make it, players often leave because they're not getting enough games, or they're not involved in enough games. So as soon as you can, make it a game. Okay, make it a game as soon as you can. It can be part of your fun movement game or your warm up. It can be part of your skill development. It can be part of coaches versus the players or parents versus the players. Turn it into a game straight away. Most of you will have heard of Keith Ricken, and Keith Ricken will have always spoken about the 3 Gs as a kind of a teenage player: the gear, the grub, but the games. We all need games, guys, whether it's a fun game or it's a movement game or it's a fundamental movement skill game or it is a skill development game. Everything has to be put into a game, and then you can bring all your kind of fitness work, your skill development, and all the other stuff that you want to work on, your tactics or your decision making, into that game then. And as most coaches have asked me about over the years, how do we bring fun into our sessions, guys? Okay, so fun has to be the biggest element, especially at the younger ages, and as you get older, then up to the 9s and 10s, 11s as well. Fun is still a very important part of it, because as talked about, linking back to the player retention, if it's not fun and it's not enjoyable, then they won't come down week after week. Okay, so make it fun as often and as regular as you can. Okay, for me, this is when I coach, this is what I live and breathe by. Okay, it's not about winning and losing. It's not about the trophies. It's not about the championships that you've won or you've lost. Okay, it's about helping all players to be the best version of themselves as they can be on and off the pitch. Okay, our job as a coach is to develop the player, develop the person to become better than they are when they came down to you. It's not about how much you win, how much you lose. Now, you'll win stuff and you lose stuff along the way, but the philosophy or the ethos that we try and drive is it's about making players better, making people better, so that when they are older, they're still playing with us, and when they stop playing, they get back involved with us as a coach or as an administrator. So, just moving on, we just have a few tips about what to do when you're coaching young children, guys. Okay, now some of you will will have experience of dealing with kids over the years. Okay, this is just from my own experience of dealing with kids in the last 10 years in schools and with clubs and with teams and stuff like that. Okay, make sure you plan your session. Make sure you have a plan before you come to training, that you're not just rolling up and scratching your head. What will I do? What game will I play? What fun game will I start with? Write your session down on a piece of paper, plan it in advance, talk to the other coaches, get their feedback, talk to the players, talk to your kids in front of you and ask them, what would you like to do the next time? Give me a game that you would like to do, because I have learned so many different new games. I've gotten so many games by asking that question. You play a game, tell me a game that you would like to play, and I can guarantee they will tell you a game that they do in school or they do on in the park or on the playground that you would have never seen or heard of. Now, later on, we'll be delving into the fundamental movement stuff and fun games. I have 40 fun games that I've picked up over the years from asking teachers, from asking the kids, give me a game to play, show me a game, explain a game to me. I talk to my own kids, and every now and again they come home, they have a different version of a game that we would have done. Brilliant. Okay. The famous basketball coach John Wooden said, planning your session should take as long as the session itself. Okay, so if you're putting as much time into the session, that's how much it should be planned as well. Okay, so when you're planning your session, there should be a purpose to it. There's an outcome of it. Okay, and you start with the end in mind. So, for example, if we're doing, say, a hurling or camogie skill, and you're trying to work on doubling on the ball on the ground, okay, that's your end point. How do we bring our games into that? How do we get the movement games to work around that point or that outcome of the game or at the session? Work it from the start, or work it from the end and work backwards. What do you hope to achieve by the end of the session or by the end of that training session, and work backwards. See, can you filter in your fundamental movement games, your skill development, and make sure that they all have a purpose, and it's not just a game or an exercise for the sake of a game or an exercise, but there's a purpose to it. The movement that you do in your games is related back to the skills that you're working on, and the skills that you're working on are related back to the purpose or the outcome that you hope to have at the end of the session. Okay. Do you plan what to say in the session? Do you plan? Do the coaches know your plan? Do the other coaches know your plan? Okay, it's very important that you keep everybody in the loop. If there's one head coach doing the sessions, get the feedback from the other coaches. Even if they don't want to input, just ask the question, because it's very important to keep everybody in the loop. Okay, arrive early. Very important that we arrive early. Okay, because I was only talking to a coach yesterday, and he was telling me that they were training one day and he was a small bit late, and they had 2 6-year-old players standing around waiting on the pitch all by themselves because the coach hadn't arrived early enough. The parents came to the gate, dropped the kids off, and went without knowing that there was nobody there to mind them. So it's very important that you're there before anybody else. You're there enough time to set up. Enough time, especially now with COVID and as COVID supervisors and stuff like that, we're there early enough to set up and get our stations ready, get our gear out, get our cones ready, get our footballs, our hurley, our slitters and hurleys and helmets, get all them sorted, bibs, so we're not standing around twiddling or rushing or racing when the kids are coming in. That we're prepared and we're ready to go. Okay, make sure that one coach has a whistle. Okay, anyone who knows, and as anyone who's been dealing with kids over the last couple of years, like if you have 40 children running around screaming and shouting, they're not going to hear you if you're shouting at them. They're not going to hear you if you're trying to call them in. The whistle is king. The whistle is the boss. Kids will know from school. They're so used to it from their teachers. So have your whistle, have it ready. Make sure there's plenty of variety in your session. Change things up. I know from the younger groups that there's only certain things you can do, but it's you're repeating the stuff without repetition. So it's repetition without repetition. So you're trying to hide. We'll say, for example, if you're doing the dribble in football or in hurling, if you're trying to do that for a couple of years, you're trying to hide it in the game. You're trying to hide it in a fun exercise. You're trying to change the style of the game or the type of game so it's done in a different way, but you're doing the same skill. Don't have the same games every week, because the kids will get bored. They won't be developed. They won't be challenged. Okay, change up the rules of the game, change up the dynamic, change up the groups. Okay, keep that variety there so that the kids are engaged all the time. Okay, start with a game and end with a game. Okay, the reason we do this, okay, and the reason I encourage our coaches to do this at the start, okay, it's a fun game. We try to warm them up. We try to move them. We try to get them engaged. We try to make them happy. The reason we play a game at the end, if it's a fun game or if it's a game of the hurling or football or camogie, is kids will always remember the last thing you do. If it's a fun game at the end, the kids will always go out smiling to mum and dad. They'll always go home happy, bursting, delighted, wanting to get back there the following week. It also has a great effect that the parents can see their kids enjoying themselves, that they can see them running around, having a bit of fun, smiles on their faces. So in between your game at the start and your game at the end, this is where we work on our skills. This is where we work on the stuff that they would consider boring, the monotonous stuff that we have to do in order to develop them as players. But mix it up with your games. Okay, you can always bring in the kind of what they call the boring stuff, the skill work, into the games at the start and at the end. It also makes them up in the middle. Okay, but the most important thing here, guys, is you end with a session or with a game that the kids will go home smiling with smiles on their faces. The parents can see that they're happy. And as I said before, plenty of this, plenty of fun. Okay, I've started doing it over the last couple of years before COVID kicked in. The last game, last 5-10 minutes, bring the parents into the pitch. Get them to play chase with their kids, especially the smallies. It's absolutely fantastic. Anyone who's done it over the last couple of years will see the parents are going home smiling. The kids are going home smiling because they're running around playing chase or tag the tail or whatever the case may be with them. And it's absolutely brilliant. Obviously, we can't do it with COVID for now, but it's something that hopefully in the future we'll be able to do again. It's a fantastic way to connect with the parents, get to know the parents. Okay. And it's a fantastic way to keep everybody happy going home. Okay, when you're dealing with lots of small children and lots of noisy and hyper and excited and energetic kids, we need to break them up into smaller groups. Okay. When I go into school and when I deal with kids in school, I deal with approximately 20 to 30 kids in a small hall or a small classroom if needed. And I'm the only coach. Okay. That's a necessity. It has to be done because we've no other choice. But what we want to do is when we go down to the pitch, we want to break our session up into 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 different blocks or different groups, and that we have a coach for each of the groups then. Okay, so that way you're able to target working on skill development with this younger kids in the smaller group. You get more one-to-one time. You get a lot of technical stuff into them without being distracted with other kids, whatever the case may be. And what it also does, guys, instead of having long lines of drills and people waiting to touch the ball one every 7 or 8 goals, it cuts out the messing. It cuts out the boredom, people standing around waiting. You say in your 3v3 game here, your 3 players versus 3 players, they're engaged, the 6 players are engaged the whole time. You could have 6 or 8 players here doing the skill. Okay, they all have a ball each. Okay, they're all working, doing something, they're all engaged. You could have a group of 6 or 8 kids here again playing a fun game, they're all engaged, and that has a big cycle. Then you swap them around after 5 or 10 minutes, and every kid or every child then is engaged all of the time. Okay, they're doing something different. We brought it back to our variety. There's something different to be done. Your game is related to your skill development. Your movement game is related to the game and the skills that you're doing. So whereas when you're in a large group, it's very hard to see everybody. It's very hard to see if somebody's making mistakes. It's very hard to correct them. Okay, but the most important thing here now is we break them down into smaller groups, bib them at the start, bib them into different colors so it's easier to move them around. The red team, come follow me. The green team, come follow me, rather than them trying to figure out what team they're on if they don't have bibs. Okay. So as I said, a big part of our webinar here and our practical on the ATMA will be our fundamental movement stuff. Okay. For some of us, it probably is the first time we've maybe had to look at fundamental movement skills or had to teach it or coach it. Okay. And you're trying to think, what are fundamental movement skills? Okay. Or what are the stuff that we need to do? Okay. So I'll just say it's a basic introduction. Okay. And when we do the practical on the ATMA, we'll talk more in detail about it because it's something that's very practical based and it's a lot easier to understand when it's done practically in front of you rather than on a screen. Okay, so most of us would have grown up maybe through the 90s, guys. A lot of us were outside climbing trees, playing on the road, playing soccer or football on the greens of the estates that we grew up in or fields that we live nearby. Okay, whereas this is what kids are at in the last 12 months with COVID. Okay, playing games about sport, playing games. Okay, we all have very good thumb to eye coordination because of controllers and games and tablets and screens. Okay, so there's just a kind of a graphic between the two generations. Okay, a lot to do with insurance as well. In schools, some of the kids aren't even allowed to run on the playgrounds. Okay, in various schools, they don't get enough PE time. They don't get enough contact time with outside activity. So kids have been, it's scientific proven now that kids are less active now than they were almost 20 or 30 years ago. So this is the reason I said that we have to take up the mantle. We have to make the difference about coaching and coaching fundamental movement skills, that when we're doing our sessions, there has to be a good chunk of this because kids, especially the smaller kids, aren't doing it enough anymore. Okay, so these are the list of what fundamental movement skills are. This is taken from the slide from UCC Flame project, which is headed up by our own clubman Wesley O'Brien. Okay, and this is the evidence and the science of, they've broken it down into 3 different categories. This is what they've deemed fundamental movement skills. Now there's 3 sections. You have your locomotor, your object control, your body control, movement, manipulation, stability. I wouldn't worry about those, but it's the list. Look at the list that we have to bring into our sessions: running, jumping, hopping, skipping, sidestepping, dodging, crawling for our coordination. All of these are movement skills. All of these are stuff that we actually have to do when we're playing matches as they get older. They have to be able to run, they have to be able to jump, they have to be able to land, which is very important for injury prevention. They have to be able to skip, which is kind of the beginning of jumping. You're sidestepping, you're dodging, trying to avoid people. Crawling to get back up off the ground if you've been knocked down. Okay, all your different object control, catching, very important for football, hurling, camogie, underhand throw, which is the hand pass. Okay, your striking, your control, your dribbling, your passing. Okay, all very important skills that need to be done for football or hurling or camogie, but also need to be practiced for fundamental movement side. And our stability, our body control, guys. Okay, again, reaching, bending, twisting, turning, landing, stopping, all extremely important for the sport that we play. Okay, our game, GAA, hurling, camogie, football, very multi-directional, needs to be done. Okay, and needs to be done a lot. Okay, and we'll speak about that now in a second. Okay, so going back about 10 years ago, when I started my job as the schools coach and youth development officer, I attended a workshop with Damien Young. Damien Young has been involved with the Tipperary senior hurlers. He's brilliant and he's what he does. But this is one slide that I've taken from him when I saw this. Okay, this is what we were told to do 10 years ago, that your base movement skills has to be huge. Okay, and that all your sports skills then are built on top of that, like the foundation of a house. So you have the bigger the foundation, the stronger the walls, or the stronger the house will be. The same with when it comes to sport and movement, that the bigger the base of fundamental movements, the stronger the sport skills will become over time. Okay, that was 10 years ago, and this is the latest thinking. Okay, again, you have your build or your massive foundation block of movement skills. You have your sport skills layered on top, but in between, and each age, that there's a block of fundamental movement skills done. Now, 10 years ago, they were saying up to a certain age, maybe up to 7 or 8, you do a huge amount of this, and then it would just be mainly sports skills. Okay, that you probably wouldn't get any more benefit out of doing fundamental movement skills from a later point of view of 9, 10, 11, 12. But now the latest research and the latest evidence is that as we get older, as we grow up into our teenage years, from the younger years, it's very important that we layer more FMS, fundamental movement stuff, in with our sports skills at each age. Because as we know, as we can see from lots of kids, they grow quickly, they're late bloomers, they're late developers. So if you're kind of saying stop at 8 years of age of doing fundamental movement skills, and then you have an extremely sudden growth spurt of a 9 or 10-year-old, they have to relearn all their movement skills again, because their body is totally different than they were when they're 5. Okay, so when we are factoring in planning our session, okay, this is our model that we need to work off. Okay, massive chunk of fundamental movement skills at 5, 6, 7, and 8, layered in with your sports skills, layered in with your fundamental movement skills as we move through each session and each age. Okay, it's not just done once and we can move on, it's done all the time. It has to be intertwined, it has to be interlinked with our fundamental movement, and our sports skills have to be together. Okay, so we're just going to take a little break for 2 minutes. I'm going to get you to do a little task or a little job for me. Anyone who was on the workshop yesterday will have done this, so you can do it again, or you can go take a drink of water, or go get a breath of fresh air for 2 minutes. Okay, with your piece of paper, I want you to draw a picture of a coffee mug. Okay, a very basic picture of a coffee mug. So I'll give you about 30 seconds, 30, 40 seconds to draw something. Now you don't have to show it, it's only between you and yourself. Just draw a picture of a coffee mug or a cup of tea, whatever you drink. Okay, so you should all have drawn something by now. Next to that coffee cup, or next to that cup of tea that you're after drawing, I want you to draw a second one, but I want you to put more detail into it. Be more creative with it, put more detail into it if you can. Some coffee cups come with drawing or a picture on it, or a different kind of a handle, or a different lip on the top of it. Put more detail into it. I'll give you another 30 seconds and we'll move on. Okay, so without seeing what you've drawn, okay, and I'd say about 99% of you will have drawn something like this. Okay, these are just a few samples that I've taken from online. Okay, you'll have drawn coffee cup, something like this. Okay, all different shapes and sizes, all different handles, different, you know, depths, different colors. Okay, and coffee cups like this, guys, they resemble our coaching style. Okay, there's so many different ways of coaching, a different approach. Okay, there's so many different styles and ways of doing things. But as a coach, if we only use one style, okay, if we take this one here at the top, the big one at the top, if we only use one approach or one style, fair enough, we'll see solutions off of this style. Okay, but we're only seeing it from one perspective. Now, as an adult, when we're making tea or coffee, this is what we see. Okay, we see the coffee mug or the cup of tea from this angle. Okay, we look at it from high looking down low. That's perspective. Okay, and the thing about coaching, guys, and as a coach, there are so many different perspectives out there. Rather than just looking at from one viewpoint or one point of view, or doing one style of coaching, there are so many different styles, there's so many different perspectives. And the open-minded, the growth mindset coach, the one who is willing to learn and try new things, they will actually go out and they will search and seek different approaches, different styles, different perspectives. They will have the ambition or the desire to look at all sports. They look at rugby, soccer, basketball, lacrosse, hockey, to try and pick up ideas or try and pick up a different coaching style or different perspectives that they can learn from, and then they can bring back to their own coaching and pass it on to the players that they're coaches or they're coaching. And as you become a better coach, then you will ultimately be coaching kids better. They will turn into be better players and better people then, because of your need or your want to search out and seek different styles and different approaches and different information from different sports. Okay, it's very important as a coach that we develop, that we evolve, that we keep moving forward rather than staying stuck in the past. Because I know me as a player or me as a coach, when I started off coaching, I coached the same way that I was coached when I was a young person. It was line drills, it was backs and forwards, it was you do it this way, you do it my way, you do it the highway. If you don't like what you see, you can jump and go somewhere else, kind of attitude. Whereas over the years, as I've watched and I've listened and I've looked around and I've tried to learn from other people, my coaching perspective, my coaching style, my approach has become totally different. Okay, and the great thing about this morning is there's must be the bones of 40 of us on. Each of us has a different style of coaching. Each of us has a different life experience, or each of us has a different sporting experience that will give us that perspective. Okay, and it's very important that we can see things from a different perspective, that we don't just assume things are okay or that they're good this way, that we're constantly trying to get better. We're trying to make ourselves better as a coach. Okay, just sum it up. The coffee mugs equal our coaching style. The no two styles are the same. And that's the great thing about having a variety of different coaches within your group. Okay, some coaches might be good at giving technical advice. Some coaches might be good at talking to the players one-on-one and making them feel comfortable, making getting that connection between the coach and the player. Some coaches might be good at organizing. We all have a different skill set as a coach. We all have different styles of the way we approach things, and it's just trying to make the most out of these people and this group within that group of coaches when you're dealing with kids. Okay, so over the years and doing workshops and doing award or foundation award courses and stuff like that, coaches and prospective coaches have always asked me, what happens when things don't go to plan? Okay, and most of you will know this guy here, ex-heavyweight champion Mike Tyson. Okay, he famously said, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Okay, we go into a team or into a match or competitive environment, we all have a plan. But what happens when we metaphorically get punched in the mouth? What happens to us as a coach when we get metaphorically punched in the mouth in a training session? Have we prepared for it? Are we happy to let things go? Are we going to stop it and change it? So we're going to discuss that in a bit now. So when we make out our session plan, this is what we hope it to be. Okay, smooth, linear. Okay, it's very from getting from point A to point B as quickly as possible without any interference, without any problems. Okay, this is what we plan for. Okay, but this is what actually happens. Anyone dealing with kids over a period of time will know that, fair enough, when you sit down, this is what you plan, but this is actually what happens in a session. Because as an experienced coach of kids will tell you, you don't know what kind of mentality or what kind of I suppose energy levels that they have when they come down to training. They could be just out of bed on a Sunday morning, it could be a Wednesday evening, they could be wrecked, they could be just after a feed of sugar. You just don't know what you're going to get with kids. Okay, and that's the beauty of being a coach, and you know, the unexpected will happen, but you have to plan for this. Okay, you can't just expect your session to run smoothly and expect and everything to go according to plan. This is what's going to happen. Okay, we have to practice, or we have to plan for organized chaos. We have to plan for unstructured play, and we have to plan that the kids are going to make lots of mistakes, and that's vital. And I wouldn't have any problem in saying that as a coach, I make mistakes and I learn from these mistakes, but I also expect my players to make mistakes, because when players are making mistakes, that means they're trying. That means they're making an attempt at something. That means they're actually putting in the effort to do something that's challenging. Okay. So as a coach, do we allow unstructured play or chaos in our sessions, or do we make sure everything goes according to plan? Okay. Should we plan unstructured play or organized chaos in our sessions? Okay, this is the questions you need to ask yourself as a coach or a coaching group. You know, when you're planning your session, do we plan for this stuff? Because ultimately, we have to ask the question, which is better for the players long term? Because I can guarantee you, this is exactly what happens in a match. It's unstructured, it's chaotic, nobody knows what's going to happen next. Whereas with your session plan, you kind of know A, B, C, D, E, and F. This is what's going to happen. But ordinarily, this is what actually happens. Okay, and the same things happen in a match. So if we can prepare our sessions in a chaotic and it's organized chaos, as I call it, whereas from the outside looking in, it looks like, Jesus, the kids are just running amok or whatever, but it's organized. That there's lots of decision making in it. There's lots of movement in it. It's multi-directional. There's lots of mistakes being made, and that you're able to correct those mistakes as a coach. So which way would be better for a player long term, if you're trying to bring them into teenagers, and from teenagers into adolescence, and adolescence into adulthood? This would be a lot better for them long term, because they have so much more learning in this than they will in here. So we're moving on to our resource section, guys. Okay, so I'm just gonna come out of this screen for a second and just go into something else. Okay. So we're just going to move into our resource section here, guys. Okay, I'm gonna show you. I've developed some books for each of the sections, for camogie, for football, for ladies football, for the boys, for hurling and football. And what we're going to do, guys, I'm going to run quickly through it. As we said at the meeting, for the guys who meet or people who are at the meeting the other night, we will be sending out these resources through PDF, through hard book format, and we will be using these in our sessions. So you should be able to see the screen again, just coming up there now. So I've just put up the hurling one, guys. Okay, and each of the book is the same format. Okay, so I'll just run briefly through it. And the reason I've done the hurling is because there's more to games, there's more stuff in it because there's more technical stuff in it. So I'll just scan through it here. So each book will have the same content. It'll be a second, hopefully slow loading up in your screens here. Sorry, I'm just completely blank here. 1 sec now. Apologies for the delay now, guys. Okay, we'll try it there now again. So it's going to come up on your screens there again. And hopefully there'll be. So what you'll have in each of the books, then you'll have a table of contents. Okay, you'll have some sample session plans. Okay, for the hurling and the camogie, you'll have the details about the correct hurling size, and then the various age groups will have all the different skills and all the different sample sessions within the book. Okay, so I'm just going to scroll on. So you'll have this, like this will be a sample session. Okay, again, just a guide for people, especially for young coach, for kids or coaches of young kids and new coaches. You're trying to figure out, how do I set up my plan? Okay, start off with your fun game, moving on to skill development or another fun exercise, skill development, fun exercise, mini games, and then a fun game at the end. Okay, so that's one sample session for a 60-minute training session. Again, these are in all the books, so when you get them, you can have a good look at them. Again, this is just depending on your numbers and the amount of groups that you need. Okay, different various types of session plans. So again, like I said, these are all in all of the books. Okay, for the hurling fraternity, again, it's just details of how to correct or get the correct hurling size, because a lot of kids actually have hurlers that are too heavy and too long, and it gives you details of how to pick and choose the correct hurley size. Okay, so we'll just go through one example of it here. So on each age group will have a season plan. Hopefully you'll be able to see it there. I'll zoom in a bit more so it doesn't hit you on your phone. So it goes monthly, and it gives you the activities that you need to do. It'll give you the skills, the core skills that you need to do, and it gives you kind of an associate skill that will help maybe with some of the main core skills. Okay, so just we'll take this under 5 on here, guys. Okay, you set out for your 3-month block of February, March, and April when you start back. Then you're working on your skills of the ready lock position, dribble, ground strike, and all the bits of the various stuff here. So all these go into massive detail. It goes down into your fundamental movement stuff. And again, it gives you an idea to be done in every part of the session: warm up, fun games, cool down, all the different types of fundamental movements that we need to do. And we'll speak about more of that when we move on to the fundamental pack. The types of sessions, okay, and gives you kind of an ideas or guides of how long to spend at things and what to do and stuff like that. So that is broken down in each age group of each of the codes: football, hurling, ladies football, camogie, and it's all in each book. So then when you move on, so the skills part of it, all the skills of that age are in it. Okay, it breaks it down, and when you move on to the skills section, It gives you the details of parts of the hurley, how to hold the hurley properly. The same with the football. It'll give you the different skill cards. It'll explain the skill. It'll demonstrate the skill. It'll give you some basic kind of skill-based exercises. Okay, the very basic ones. Then you progress it onto games, and then I have added in maybe some of the fun games that I would use in school. In my own coaching as well, some of the fun games where they're more game-based rather than drill-based. And the reason being is because there's lots more decisions to be made. And I read a quote there recently about this, and they said the more movements and the more decisions that we ask our players to do, the better they will become, even from an early age. And when we move on, when we do our fundamental movement practical and our hurling and football practicals, getting the players to move in multi directions, to be moving around with loads of players moving around them as well, it creates decision making in those players rather than running out to the cone and back with nobody in your way. As can be seen in these exercises here, out to the cone and back, and you've kids standing behind, whereas all the kids and all the players are engaged in exercises like this where they all have a ball, they're all moving around. Okay, it's a fun game. You're trying to bring in all your decision making, all your other stuff that you want to try and work on as well. So it gives you loads of different games, loads of ideas. Again, these are only guides. You can obviously do what you feel is worthwhile, but it just gives you a couple of games, a couple of ideas, guys, a lot of skill-based stuff. Okay, so all those details are in all the books, and I'll actually have them up in the club library at the moment, and I'll send the link on to the club library to everybody and to all the various sections, and they'll be sent out to all the various sections via PDF as well, so that each coach has the PDF version, and it's up to you then if you want to go and get it printed. Like from the boy side of things, we're going to get them printed. We're going to get some football and hurling books printed, and they'll be handed out to some of the coaches then. Okay, so it's an excellent resource there. It's got a load of clashing and contesting the ball and stuff like that for hurling and football and camogie as well. So this is it will be an excellent resource. It's the one thing from the boy side of it that we've been crying out for years, and with COVID, it's given me the chance to put it all together and put it on paper or on the computer so that we can print it off. So it's an excellent resource. Again, I'll send it on after the webinar today, so you can have a good look at it yourself. You can pick the ages you need to do or need to work on. Okay, so if I click onto this here now, this is what we call the fundamental movement pack, or your fun games. Okay, so once it loads up here now, so we have on this, then we have 40 fun movement games. Okay, the likes of tag the tail, stuck in the mud, leapfrog tag, all the different various fun movement games that we'd be looking to do at the start of training, at the end of training. There's 40 games. So if there's anyone who is short of games or short of ideas, there's plenty of resources in this. Okay, there's different types of games. There's all explained in detail. There's a couple of links into them. If you want to click on the PDF, you can click on it. There's a video of how to play the game as well for some of them. Okay, so it's some fantastic resource again. And the one thing I like about these games is the names of them. Okay, you can see octopus tag, flush the toilet. Kids will remember these names. You ask them what game do you want to play? I want to play flush the toilet. Okay, they absolutely love it. Okay, they think it's hilarious when you do games like lay the egg, where you're laying the eggs and stuff like that, and rob the nest and flush the toilet. So now I scroll way down here because there's after the 40 games. Okay, there's a load of different games. Again, as I said, it explains all the different how to play them. So at the back of the book, then there'll be 30 fun FMS exercises, which are your basic, your fundamental movement stuff. Again, I've kind of put in the more fun stuff for the kids, especially that they can do as part of their warm-up or as part of their fundamental movements section of their training. Stuff like bear crawls, bunny hops, crab walks, all very good for coordination and movement and, you know, using the different parts of their bodies. A lot of these exercises were actually done in our Zoom classes over the last couple of weeks before we were able to get back into to outdoor training. So most of the kids will know these from me being in school. They'll have done them on different Zoom classes, as I said. So all those are there on a resource fee, okay, and they're absolutely fantastic to have as a resource when you're looking to plan your session, or even just to add in something extra that you maybe have more time than you thought you had in training, okay? So we'll just move back on. So again, as I said, all those will be made available to coaches through PDF and through book format, depending on the section if they want to get them printed off. Okay, I know talking to Harry and to Deck, they were thinking about doing it again. So which I think is a very worthwhile investment of money, guys. Maybe cost you maybe the bones of 200 or 300 euros, depending on the amount that you want. Okay, but it's definitely worthwhile putting the money into it because it's going to pay off in the long run. Okay, so we're nearly there now, guys. I'm nearly there now. Second, I share my screen again. So just other resources that are out there, guys. There are different various books on kind of leadership and coaching. And this one here at the top, guys, if you can get your hands in it, if you've read it, Coaching Children in Sport by Paul Kilgannon. He's a teacher from Galway. He's an excellent book, an excellent read. It doesn't tell you what to do in training, but it tells you how to deal with kids, how to create that connection with players and coaches and the kids' parents and stuff like that. It tells you how to engage them, how to keep the players engaged, how to, you know, how to deal with them rather than what to do with them. Okay, it's an excellent read, guys. If you can get your hands on a copy of it, I know there's probably get it on Amazon or Book Depository or one of these places. It's very good. Now, for anyone who's into podcasts, there's a couple of the podcasts that I would listen to on a regular basis. The top one here is done by one of our local GDAs, Colin Crowley. It's basically the idea of the podcast is what they do is they watch a sporting movie. If you're into movies and you're into sport, it talks about the coaches within those movies or the players in those movies, and they have a 45 minutes to an hour discussion on the movie and kind of coaching ideas and coaching thoughts of the movie to kind of be put into practice and reality. Some other good ones then, okay, they're very worthwhile listening to if you're into podcasts. Okay, lots of other different resources on social media on from different sports. Most of the games that I've gotten over the years have come from soccer. I hate to admit it, but a lot of this stuff, because it's so international, there's so many different coach styles and perspectives that I take a lot of my stuff from soccer, I adapt it to hurling, to football, to the movement stuff, and I basically use it as my sessions. So, okay, lots of ideas out there if you're willing to go looking for it, guys. Okay. So just nearly there now. We're near about 10 more minutes and we're done. We're finished up with some coaching advice. Okay. So as we spoke about creating a connection with your players and coach the person and not the sport. Very important that we connect with players before we correct them. Because if you can get that connection with your players, if you can get that trust between the players, then they'll respect the feedback more, and they'll respect you more, rather than just coming from someone that they don't have a connection with or they don't really know. Okay, so very important, like connecting with the players, getting to know the players' first names, getting to know their parents' first names, because I can guarantee it, and I do it all the time if I can and where I can, is if I see the players or from school or from the club, I'll always say hi to them and I'll use their first name, because especially the very small kids, they get such a buzz and such a kick out of that you actually know their name. So it's such a massive thing that you don't realize how much of a big thing. My missus gives out to me the whole time for doing it when I'm out walking or out collecting the kids from school, saying hi to everybody. It's such an important part, guys, that you're to connect with your players, and there's a connection then between you and the club, and they'll have that connection for the rest of their life. Okay, so you must try and create that first day experience. Okay, I was reading this in a book once, that these multinational corporations, they bring in these experts, and what they do, they try to create this first day experience for their employees. So I've kind of taken that idea and trying, maybe hopefully that we could do that in a coaching environment with our kids, to create a first day experience, so that it's fun. It's they're going out of there talking about the game that they played, or the match that they played, or the thing that they've done, and they remember that experience for the rest of their life. Because as we know, guys, we always remember our first experience of anything. Okay, our first day at school, our first day in college, or our first day at work. Okay, if we can create that first day experience for our kids, it's a positive memory that they'll have for the rest of their lives. Okay, from my own experience, I've played in loads of matches. Any of the coaches on here who played with me have played in loads of matches, but it's the crack around the match, or the experiences that you have after the match. They're the experiences that they remember. They very rarely remember matches, or because playing so many of them. It's the crack that they have going on a bus. It's the going to McDonald's after a match, or the small little things like that. Because like over the years, I've been involved with kids teams like in Skeena Skull, where they've come out of Páirc Uí Chaoimh or Páirc Uí Ring and been beaten in the Skeena Skull final, and it was almost like that somebody had died in the dressing room after, as they were bawling, crying. We got on the bus, we took them to McDonald's, and by the time we got home to school an hour later, they'd forgotten about the match. They just remembered that McDonald's experience, or the crack on the bus singing songs. Create that first day experience for your kids when you're coaching them. Be an architect of fun. Okay, it says, it's exactly what it says in the thing, guys. Create sessions that are fun, create games that are fun, create an environment that's fun, because that will ultimately keep your players coming down week after week after week when it's fun. Okay, as I said earlier about giving feedback and praising the players, praise their effort rather than their talent. Okay, now I read a book a couple of years ago. It's called Mindset, from Carol Dweck. She's a clinical psychologist from America. She did a lot of research on the mindset of kids at young ages, and what she found was that teachers and coaches that praise effort rather than praising talent, that the player or the players that you've praised the effort towards are actually demanding more challenging tasks or more challenging exercises, compared to when you're praising talent. They get bored, they don't, or they're not willing to put in the effort, or they're not willing to try hard or put in the work for it. So the message I want to get across to the coaches, and I've tried to get across to coaches over the years, is that you praise the effort. Even if they can't do the exercise, or they can't do the skill, praise the effort that they've done well. Give them the feedback to say, right, you've done this well, you've done that well, you just need to work on the last bit and you're almost there. Great work, excellent effort, rather than saying, well done, Johnny, well done, Johnny. Okay, so you're specific in what you do and you praise their effort. Okay, let the players solve the problems. Okay, as I spoke about a couple of times earlier, ask the players the questions. Ask them how did they thought it worked? Did it work well? Was it challenging? Was it hard? Was it easy? What would they have done differently the next time to make it even better? Okay, let the players figure it out. Okay, don't let your players skip the struggle. Don't give them the answer, give them the easy opt-out, guys, by giving them the answer straight away. Ask them the question. They have the answers in there. You just need to ask the right questions for them. Okay, and ask yourself this question. After the session, would I have enjoyed that session as a player? Okay, if your answer is no, then you need to have a look at yourself. You need to have a look at your session plan. You need to look at what you're doing, because if you wouldn't have enjoyed that, then you can be sure the kids don't. Okay, so that's a kind of a good bit of personal reflection at the end of your session, or when you're sitting down planning it and looking at, will I enjoy that session? Would my son or daughter enjoy that session? You know, and you can ask them. I ask my kids the whole time when I'm making out sessions for school or for different classes and stuff like that. Would you like that session? I'll show you the exercise. I'll show you them the game. Would you like that? And they tell me yes or no. And ultimately I kind of gauge my session plan then off their feedback. Okay, I came across this on a webinar once. When a flower doesn't bloom, you fix the environment in which it grows and not the flower. So the players are your flowers, okay? Your coaching session is the environment. Okay, so if the player or the flower aren't growing, lads, okay, it's not the flower or the player's problem, it's the environment to which you put them in. So create that environment where it gives them the opportunities to make decisions, to make mistakes, but it's okay to make mistakes, and they know it's okay, that they're not going to get abused or shouted at for making a mistake, that you're able to correct them, give them the correct feedback. Okay, you can have a little read off that yourselves there. Okay, very important message. Again, about blooming or kind of late developers. All kids develop at different ages. Okay, just an excellent one to kind of back that up again. Popcorn is prepared in the same pot, in the same heat, in the same oil, yet the kernels do not pop at the same time. So don't compare your child to others. Okay, so this is an excellent kind of analogy, an excellent example of kids. Every child develops at a different level. Every child grows differently. They grow fast, some they grow slower, others they develop their skills differently. Okay, so but if we write off our children at 8 or 9 and say they're no good or they're this or that, then we could be losing out on some serious club players or serious club administrators or coaches later on in life, because we haven't given them the opportunity to develop, or you know, to let them grow in their own way or develop in their own time. But we have to create an environment where that is possible. Okay, so it's the end of the webinar. If anyone has any questions or anything they would like to ask or talk about, feel free, jump in there for a couple of minutes if anyone is interested or has anything to ask. Like I said, the webinar is recorded. I'll send on the PDF version of the webinar. I'll send on all the books and all the different resources that can be watched or can be looked at yourself later on, and go back over details. So if anyone has any questions before we finish up, or if you wanted to type them into the chat. Okay. So if nobody's anything to say, guys, or anything to ask, we'll call it a day. We're on it 75 minutes there now, guys. Okay, that's plenty enough. Looking forward to seeing all of you again in person next week on the pitch for the first time in a long time, bar digitally or over Zoom. Okay, be great to actually see everybody back in action. Again, most of you will have my number. Okay, if there's anybody need anything about coaching or about anything, feel free to contact me, guys. Okay, this is part of my role as a youth development officer, that I'm there to kind of support the coaches, help them in any way possible, and give them advice where possible, or if they need anyone, you know, players recruited or anything like that. This is my job. So we'll say goodbye. So guys, if nobody's got anything to say, guys, or anything to ask, see you all next week, guys. Take care.
Thanks, Brendan.
Thanks, Brendan. Great stuff.
Cheers,
Brilliant.
Brendan.
Thanks, Brendan. That was great. Thank you.
That was great. Thanks, Brendan.